Some opening shot thoughts and a little broadcast history. For nearly 40 years, any operator with an FCC broadcast license had to abide by what was known as the Fairness Doctrine. That means they had to give equal broadcast time to both sides of any political issue or campaign. But under pressure, the FCC voted to abolish the Fairness Doctrine in 1987 under Reagan. And it gave rise to lucrative industries like conservative talk radio and politically one-sided cable news channels. I bring this up because the current chairman of the FCC, Republican Trump supporter Brendan Carr, has claimed his agency has broad power to regulate the content on broadcast stations by enforcing a very vague idea of public interest standards. There really is no legal definition of that, and hard to understand how the FCC would have the ability to enforce or police that. Certainly, late-night broadcast television has skewed one-sided in the Trump era, pro-liberal, anti-conservative. The thing is, without the Fairness Doctrine, they are free to do that, and there's no legal authority the FCC has to stop that. If the networks believe this programming is bad for business or against their own standards, they have the freedom to change. But that's not what appears to be happening right now. FCC Chairman Carr and President Trump have openly connected the decision to suspend Jimmy Kimmel to what the government views as unfavorable coverage. It's why Colbert is out at CBS. In fact, the president has often mused that NBC's programs will be next. Complicating things further, Nexstar, the large media company that first decided to pull Kimmel on its stations that carry ABC, is trying to purchase another media company, Tegna, in a deal that could need FCC approval. And the FCC would have to lift its rule that prohibits one company from owning stations that reach 39% of all households. Now, ABC followed suit in its decision to suspend Kimmel outright. Disney has also explored sales of its ABC stations in recent years, subject to FCC approval. As they teach in the 101 level of journalism, always follow the money. After all, a lot of media executives have made a whole lot since that repeal of the Fairness Doctrine back in 1987. Tonight, the fallout from the cancellation of ABC late-night host Jimmy Kimmel. President Trump and FCC Commissioner Brendan Carr say it might just be the beginning. And a legend at 89 years young, visiting with Buddy Guy as he prepares to take the stage with his daughter this weekend at Navy Pier. Welcome to the Chicago Report. I'm Paris Schutz. The political and media worlds have had 24 hours to digest the sudden news that ABC is suspending the Jimmy Kimmel late night program. And that comes after one of the nation's largest media companies, Nexstar, which runs several ABC-affiliated stations, decided to pull him from their air. And another large media company, Sinclair, did the same, and they said they wouldn't reinstate him until he apologizes for a joke he made regarding the political reaction to the murder of Charlie Kirk. Several reports say ABC executives bowed to pressure from Trump ally, FCC Chairman Brendan Carr. Here's the joke at issue. Here's Carr's response.
Some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from.
I can't imagine another time when we've had local broadcasters tell what we call a national programmer like Disney that your content no longer meets the needs and the values of our community. So this is an important turning point. And frankly, speaking of that, obviously Charlie Kirk set out to change the country, to change the culture, and the results of his work are continuing to produce results, and that's a good thing.
And we reached out to the FCC to see if Chairman Carr could fit us into his busy interview schedule, but we did not hear back. But joining us to wade into this discussion are Harold Krent, professor of law at Illinois Tech Kent College of Law, Heather Hendershot, professor of communication studies and journalism at Northwestern University, and Jessica Gonzalez, attorney and co-CEO of the nonprofit Free Press out of Los Angeles, California. Great to have all of you. Thanks for joining me. Harold Krent, I'll start with you. Not only is there reporting that this was a result of pressure from the FCC, but you hear what the president and Chairman Carr have been saying today, that they can force operators into a move like this out of a public interest standard. Can you explain that to us in legal terms?
Well, Congress has delegated to the Federal Communications Commission the power to regulate the airwaves in the public interest. That is not a definition. No one really knows what public interest means. So the agency could develop some standards with respect to the public interest, which in some way may relate to this, I don't know why Jimmy Kimmel's talk excited such controversy. It didn't seem like it was crude or unsympathetic, but obviously it was to those at the FCC. And so they have designed retribution. And maybe there's a First Amendment issue hovering over this, but more directly, this kind of bullying can lead to self-censorship because who's next? And particularly when, as you canvass the terrain, if you have a media company that needs regulatory approval for a merger or an acquisition, then obviously they want to do everything to conform to what the FCC is suggesting to them, so they won't jeopardize, as you say, the money. And that's a real risk that we're going to lose unbiased journalism in the country.
And that's why there's a lot of criticism that perhaps Disney capitulated here, and other media companies in the past, CBS and Paramount, and that merger there. But Jessica Gonzalez, can you fill us in on this broader business conversation here where Nexstar is trying to do a big merger that would need FCC approval? So there is this financial connection.
Yeah, so here's the sequence of events. Nexstar, the largest broadcaster in the nation, has a merger deal. It's trying to buy Tegna, the fourth largest broadcaster in the nation, and it's before the Federal Communications Commission. Right now, that merger, if it went through, would be in violation not only of a national broadcast ownership limit that was set by Congress that the FCC does not have authority to overrule, but also a number of local ownership limits that the FCC has in place because they have actually defined the public interest, albeit vaguely, in the context of media ownership rules and the limits on how many stations one entity can own. They say the public interest means diversity, localism, and competition. There's a diversity of voices. So you can see why we're concerned when not only we have the president saying, well, if they're airing content that I don't like or that is critical of me, we're going to grab their license away. That's clearly violative of the First Amendment. But we also have the FCC chair, Brendan Carr, acting like a mob boss. He literally said, we can do this the easy way or we can do it the hard way. So what is Nexstar to do? What is Sinclair to do? What is Disney to do? And I'm not defending them. I was out in front of Disney Studios this afternoon protesting their capitulation to the administration. This is really dangerous. We've reached a deeper level of fascism, and we have to stand up and say this is not okay.
And Professor Hendershot at Northwestern, you have studied the media industry, you've studied conservative media. When the FCC chairman is going out and saying there are tools that we can use to help police some of these stations that have broadcast license to abide by public interest standards, what is he talking about?
Well, he's talking about the idea that they could potentially, revoke someone's license. And, in the past, this has been very rare. It's happened only occasionally. There's a moment in the 1960s where reformists and people, activists trying to improve the airwaves actually got the legal right to petition to deny license renewal. And they never succeeded in doing that. They just sort of raised awareness of their issues. It's fascinating to me that they're referring to the idea of the public interest, which the Reagan administration, when it deregulated the airways in 1984, kind of undid. They said the public interest is what interests the public, which means that the ratings would decide whether something served the public interest. And if the ratings were good, the money was good, the license would be renewed. So to circle back and kind of suggest that now we need to revisit the public interest to, get our way is really strange to me, and of course, very troubling.
In 1984, the Reagan administration and the Fairness Doctrine also was done away with in that same administration, and it led to the rise of partisan media, which was big business for a lot of folks. But Harold Krent, we even have the chairman talking about looking at The View on ABC, saying they're not playing fair, that they need to abide by political fairness laws. I mean, he's saying the equal time rule. Is that a legal standard here?
Well, it's a very fine line because Brendan Carr can persuade. Brendan Carr has the power to say, I didn't like Kimmel's speech, I don't like The View. I think that this is shoddy journalism. That's permissible because the government does have a right to speech, but they can't coerce. And so where that line is between coercion and persuasion is difficult to draw, but clearly when he's saying, I may not grant you a license if you don't do what I do, he's gone over. He's gone from persuasion to coercion, and that's where the First Amendment breaks would, I hope, come in.
And Jessica Gonzalez with Free Press. If you're Jimmy Kimmel right now and you see all these comments that the president is making, that the FCC chairman is making, really not hiding the fact that they're very actively involved in what's going on, not really hiding the fact that they were involved in what happened with Stephen Colbert at CBS. Are they leaving a roadmap here for a potential lawsuit?
Well, that depends if Disney is going to have any courage to stand up to this. Disney has standing to bring suit. And if they don't, we will never settle the legal questions. It is time to stand up, frankly, but I don't have a lot of faith that's going to happen. We already saw, for instance, Disney, ABC capitulate to the Trump administration in defamation lawsuit that it probably almost certainly could have won in court. But again, the company has business before the agency and the administration. It's making calculated business decisions based on money, not based on what's good for our democracy, not based on what's in the public interest. And I'd say if there was any standard that the public interest should represent, it should be freedom of speech.
And Professor Hendershot, freedom of speech is obviously very important to you and what you teach. But if you are Disney CEO Bob Iger, Disney obviously the owner of the ABC network, owner of many stations that carry ABC, tell us what he faces right now in terms of the decisions that he has to make.
Well, he's going to face some backlash, certainly from people canceling their Disney subscriptions and getting, trying to fight back financially, right? I don't know. He's in the court of public opinion, and I don't think it's going to go well for him there. Because he just completely caved. And, Jessica's point about having courage is really, really important right now. From a different angle, from like liberal sort of attacking broadcasting a certain way, when Newton Minow made his famous Vast Wasteland speech in 1961 to the National Association of Broadcasters, they freaked out, to use technical language. They were flipped out that he was somehow trying to impact their content, but he wasn't trying to censor. He wasn't saying he pointed out like Westerns aren't great, children's cartoons seem bad to me, but he wasn't saying censor that stuff, get rid of it. He was saying just produce better stuff. Include documentaries, include public service. And the networks actually, they were sort of frightened and concerned, but they rallied and they said, great, we'll make more documentaries. We'll do more, CBS News special reports. We'll do the kind of stuff that Edward R. Murrow is good at. And so it ended up being, I would say, productive, not a censorship moment like we're seeing today.
You bring up a great name, Newton Minow, the late Newton Minow, who former FCC chairman, Chicagoan through and through, a mentor to me. He was instrumental in the founding of WTTW, and he was instrumental in all the public affairs program that they did over there. Newton Minow would be interesting to hear what he thinks of what's going on right now, the late Newton Minow. Let's take a break, but we're going to continue this conversation when we come back, so you guys all stay there. We'll be right back.